So the recess is ended and the meeting will come to order at 5:15 p.m. We're going to move on to item number 5 on the agenda, the rectangular rapid flashing beacons at 3 locations, and I'm going to let staff take over.
Commissioners, this item is for the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and Associate Engineer Ed Alberto will be making the presentation.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time tonight for me to talk about the rectangular rapid flashing beacons project that we have in the city. My name is Ed Alberto, and I'm an Associate Engineer at the Traffic Engineering Branch. So we are asking you today to support staff's recommendation to install rectangular rapid flashing beacons at the intersections of Paseo del Norte and Elder Court, Monroe Street and Magnolia Avenue, and Stock Avenue at Fermi Court. So what are rectangular rapid flashing beacons? Well, they are user-actuated amber LEDs that supplement warning signs at unsignalized intersections or mid-block crosswalks. So here's a picture of a typical installation that you would see around town, most visibly along Carlsbad Boulevard. The assembly consists of a solar power panel at the top. That's how it gets its power. It also has pedestrian warning signs and a supplemental warning sign with the rectangular rapid flashing beacon assembly between the two signs with the amber LED that will flash back and forth between the two light heads. And they are actuated by pedestrian push button. So how did we determine the project locations? So we rely on the public through the city's service request system to identify pedestrian crossings that they feel are in need of enhancement. So staff...
We're in our quiet zone.
Stop you for a second. Well, please, everybody mute. While if you're not talking or presenting, please mute. Thank you.
So we use the city's service request system to identify pedestrian crossings for enhancement. Staff will go out and collect data to determine how to prioritize these crossings for enhancement. So staff had developed a point system for prioritizing crossing locations. And this point system was based on a study that the city of San Diego had done in 2015, where they did a comprehensive statistical analysis of pedestrian risk factors. And so we use these different factors to provide a scoring prioritization for each location. And of course, it involves the speed of the roadway, if the location is in a school zone, the distance from the nearest controlled crossing, the average daily traffic, the roadway width, how many lanes the pedestrians have to cross, what is the pedestrian volumes and location, and collision history for items that could have been corrected for pedestrian collisions. So let's take a look at the first location. This is Monroe Street at Magnolia Avenue. There's an existing high visibility yellow laddered crosswalk indicating that it is in the school zone. Based on field observations, this laddered crosswalk was still in great condition. So as part of the project, it's going to remain. We're going to supplement the crossing with some yield limit lines. So these little triangular shaped limit line so that vehicles on approach to the crosswalk know where to yield or stop for pedestrians entering. And in the location, we'll have the rectangular rapid flashing beacon assembly with the lights flashing oncoming traffic, and also supplement that with a yield here to pedestrian sign. The next location at Stock Avenue and Fermi Court. Existing is your standard, we call them transverse line crosswalks. Those will be improved and enhanced to the high visibility continental style crosswalk that is the standard in the city of Carlsbad now. Also with the yield limit lines, and the rectangular rapid flashing beacons will be on the Stock Avenue approaches to the intersection, also with the yield here to pedestrian signage. And the third location, Paseo del Norte at Elder Court. It's a residential community with a crossing across Paseo del Norte to their community center. Also removing the existing transverse lines for that crosswalk, upgrading them with a high visibility continental crosswalk, and adding the yield limit lines with the rectangular rapid flashing beacons along the Paseo del Norte crossing and the yield here to pedestrian signage. So just a recap of the pedestrian safety enhancements. The primary device that we're installing are the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. But again, those are a piece of the pedestrian safety enhancements that goes along with the pedestrian warning signage, high visibility crosswalks, yield limit lines, and the yield here to pedestrian signage. The next steps for this project will be to advertise and request for bids in spring of 2020. We'll then request City Council to award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder in summer of 2020, and then expect project completion in fall of 2020. So again, we're asking that you support staff's recommendation to install rectangular rapid flashing beacons at the intersections of Paseo del Norte and Elder Court, Monroe Street and Magnolia Avenue, and Sauk Avenue at Fairview Court. Are there any questions?
You're muted, Mona.
Again. Thank you for the presentation. Commissioner Hunter, do you have any questions?
I do. I was looking at Sauk Avenue, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of stuff there, except there's Taylor Golf on one side, and it looks like their test range on the other side. Is that what it's designed for? Because there's really nothing else there.
Yes, for the most part, yes. And we have had past requests from tailor-made employees to please enhance that crossing. And that's one of the things that we've taken into account, requests for improvements.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Perez?
Yeah, just one question. So that rapid flashing beacons, just to clarify for me, are those equivalent to the ones that are located on Carlsbad Boulevard between Tamarack and Pine Street?
Yes, those are very similar.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Pensier? Hold on.
Okay, yeah. There was you have a point system that you used for deciding, where to put these, as well as, of course, requests from people. And one of the things I noticed was that you allow 5 points for collisions if they're pedestrian related. So one of the questions is that for each collision? And if so, what period of time did you use for that parameter? And then I just wondered what the basis for that is. I would have thought that would be a fairly high number. Should it be higher, I guess is my question.
Okay, staff?
The point system was developed because we wanted to prioritize locations. We used it a little bit differently than the city of San Diego. The city of San Diego was looking at a way to balance requests, how to evaluate requests for putting in marked crosswalks. How would you go about deciding where a good place is? And they looked at these factors. We were looking at it as from the perspective of we have a certain number, a limited number of marked uncontrolled crosswalks in Carlsbad. We kind of wanted to be able to gauge when we get a customer request, how it would stack up in terms of those concerns that the city of San Diego evaluated as problematic for marked crosswalks. And so we used their numbering system. I think the numbering system for collisions was 5 points, whether or not there was a pedestrian collision or not. In most cases, it was either yes or no. If there were multiple pedestrian collisions, we would have noted it. But for the most part, pedestrian collisions in Carlsbad are fairly rare. So in the cases of this spreadsheet, it was 5 points if there was a collision-related accident at the location or not.
Okay. Commissioner Linky, do you have any comments?
I think Commissioners Hunter and Pensiers asked my questions. I'd be in agreement with Commissioner Pensiers that if there's actually a pedestrian that's hit, then that location should probably just jump to the top of the list. But that's all I'd have to say on the priority list.
Okay. Commissioner Fowler?
No questions.
Okay. Vice Chair Johnson? You are muted. You are muted. You are muted. There you go.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering how Salk Avenue got such a high score because they're not by a school. They're a one-lane road, and as Commissioner Hunter said, they're pretty well secluded area. So the rating seemed excessively high because I physically went out and looked at it, and it's pretty well segregated from the rest of the world.
One of the factors that the city of San Diego used is speed, and that one ranked fairly high in terms of the speed of the vehicles on that roadway, making it an issue for pedestrians. But I do want to point out
25 miles an hour there?
I don't have the actual
I
speed.
believe it is.
The posted is 35 and the critical speed is 39.
So you have a critical of close to 40 miles per hour. We were able to post it at 30. But again, speed scored highly on the evaluation. And again, we have gotten requests from the tailor-made employees to put improvements, pedestrian improvements at this intersection. Most of the high scoring intersections that we evaluated have since received RFBs already. Now we're kind of taking care of the lower scoring ones. And so that question would probably come up if we bring back any future RFBs is, well, it doesn't seem to be too busy, or it's not going to rank too high since we've addressed most of the high scoring locations already with RFBs.
Yeah, I can understand if it's 35, it would get 10 points. But again, it's a one-lane road and it's not near a school. And pedestrian volume, I don't know how many pedestrians are there. There was no data given to us.
Okay. So the staff can take in consideration your comments. My only comment is, does the design, so like it was mentioned, this is the same design that's used on Carlsbad Boulevard. Does the design of the placement on the vertical bar, is that's in the standards, or is that something that the city, because when you talk about the flashing, the rapid flashing, that's just that part in the middle between the diamond sign and the arrow sign, correct?
We're talking about this part?
Yeah, that part. So is that whole thing, is that part of the design that's in the standards, or is that something that the city puts together as to where its placement?
That's the standard placement along the assembly is between the pedestrian warning sign and the supplemental arrow.
Okay, so my concern from my experience as a driver on Carlsbad Boulevard is that the sign is not tall enough. That's the first thing. So when I come and I drive hundreds feet before, I am not able to see between the two signs that are already high visibility, and with the sun reflecting in it, I have a very hard time seeing the flashing in between. So
if the two signages were spaced a little bit more with the
yeah, so my only comment is that if it's any way that we can rearrange or not rearrange, but space it a little bit so the flashing it's actually more visible. And I don't know if it's possible to also make it a little bit taller, because depends on the location, but Carlsbad Boulevard is such a busy visual street between the houses and people walking and everything, that this is not tall enough to actually see that new flashing or new busyness to attract your eye, versus in compared to everything else that takes your attention as a driver. So that's my only comment. I don't know if that's possible, but because it's between the two visible reflective signs, that does not stand out as a driver.
we can go back and take a look and see what the spacing between the signage and the lighted assembly can be.
And just to let you know, Mona, we follow, the RRFBs are not in the manual on uniform traffic control devices, but FHWA, the federal government, has given an interim approval to use certain experimental devices. This is one of them. California was granted an interim approval to utilize RRFBs. And within that interim approval, there's a set of standards that if we do install an RFB, they have to be this way. And so we follow the interim approval issued by FHWA and granted to California on how these things look and operate. And so if there's any flexibility in making them higher or whatnot, we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, pretty much the spacing or the height. I mean, the spacing, I think it would be the most effective, because then the flashing will have a background that it's not reflective. So it will be more visible. And then the height, I think that would be good. But I know you will look into it. So that's just my observation as a driver. With that said, we're gonna move on.
Actually, can I have a follow-up question? Just to, yeah. So in regards to Chairman Gokin, the RRFB we were describing, I believe Zone 55 up in the northeast corner, there is a development that has these new RRFPs. These might be something to consider to take a look at. They're pretty, I went and looked at it. They're pretty tall. When you press the button, it really gives a really clear definition of light notification, even day versus night. So it's very visible. But I just wanted to make a comment on that area. I think it's like Adobe Springs Falls Road, but it's up in the northeast corner, up there.
Yes, off of Marone Road. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second part for that Fermi Court and the Salk, I just wanted to get back to that. Just quickly looking at the street view. I know it's a 3-point. Yeah. Would it be possible to have a 3-point three-way stop there?
That'd have to be evaluated on a track from this. If it was an all-way stop, we likely wouldn't be installing an RRFB across that, since all the vehicles would be stopped.
Okay.
And I can't say for certain, but for these types of requests, when RRFBs were not available, we'd often do an always stop analysis, because that's what we could offer at the time. So I don't have the records in front of me, but I've been here long enough to guess that when we received past requests from TaylorMade, we probably did an always stop analysis based on the volumes coming out of Salk. It probably wasn't enough to justify an always stop. And so we weren't able to do anything until now.
So possible behavior. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So do I have a motion?
I move that we support staff's recommendation on this item.
I'll second it.
Okay, please note that Commissioner Linke moved the motion with Commissioner Hunter seconded. Can we go for a vote?
Yes. Commissioner Perez,
Yay.
Commissioner Linky,
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Pensiers,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Chair Goken.
Yes. Please note that it passed unanimously.